Our next two presenters are going to challenge you to reconceptualize what a map is and what it can be used for. So, from the Academy at Penguin Hall, we have Humanities teacher Doug Healy, and from the Cambridge School of Weston, art teacher Alison Safford. Please welcome them to the stage.
So we love maps. We love them a lot. We love looking at them. We love thinking about them. We love emailing them back and forth. And a lot, like yesterday. And when we taught together at the Cambridge School of Weston, we finally decided we wanted to share these maps with our students. And not just share them for the awesome objects that they are, but to share them as tools to dig out information, to figure out what's going on in the world around them and to make use of it. So why maps? Maps are stories. I want you to take a look at this map for a minute. It's by cartographer Dennis Woods. And this is a map of his neighborhood in North Carolina. And I want you to think, what are you seeing and what are you not seeing? My guess is the first thing that you've noticed is not there are streets. He's not really interested in making a map that's going to show you how to get from point A to point B. He's interested in pumpkins, and specifically jack-o'-lanterns that are out in porches in his neighborhood around the Halloween holiday. Another thing hopefully you've noticed is that there are a bunch of pumpkins, jack-o'-lanterns over here, not so many over here. There's some along this, I can tell you from seeing other maps, a street here, and there's none on these streets here. And he wants you to start to consider, why is that? What's making it safe for these people to put their pumpkins out, or what makes it desirable for them to put their pumpkins out there and not desirable to put their pumpkins out there? And he's hinting at all sorts of issues, not the least of which is economics. This is a quote from Dennis Woods. Maps are just nude pictures of reality, so they don't look like arguments. They look like, oh my God, that's the real world. That's one of the places they get their kick-ass authority. So we value questioning that kick-ass authority, teaching our students to value that. We value turning our students into critical thinkers so that they can look out at the landscape around them and make the connections for themselves and sort of see what's going on and make their own decisions about what's going on. And why is there a danger in believing this kick-ass authority? Because you don't want to believe every piece of information that's handed to you. We want to create thinkers and not consumers.
So one of the things we found was that our kids were very eager for that like one right answer, the black or white, the yes or no, the Gandhi or Genghis Khan, and that they had a lot of trouble with ambiguity. They just wanted to know what the textbook thought. And so they would, far too often, it didn't occur to them that they could have their own opinion, do their own analysis, tell their own story. And it's not that they weren't thinking, because they're thinking all the time. It's just that it never occurred to them to think that they might be smarter and more interesting than the textbook. So we wanted to use maps to get them past knowing to understanding, to help them, that's it, to help them get lost, like I am a little bit, help them get lost so that they can learn to find their own way back again.
So this is an example of one of our projects where we took the students to Chinatown, which they loved. And we took them to Chinatown specifically because we wanted them to have a first-hand experience with a neighborhood, a specific neighborhood, and also because we wanted them to learn to trust their senses, to trust themselves as information gatherers. We gave them the assignment that when you went through Chinatown, you had to use one of the 5 senses as a filter in experiencing Chinatown. This is Paloma and Harim, and they specifically chose the filter of sight. Eye contact in Chinatown, specifically uncomfortable eye contact in Chinatown. And this is my favorite part. Apparently this poor little innocent pigeon had a stare off with Harim and won. The pigeon won. Same project, same assignment, 2 different students, Raina, who's from Lexington, Mason, who's from China. They mapped a meal that they shared together in Chinatown, and all sorts of things came up during their meal about their differences in their families and how they had traditions of different kinds of foods and what their experiences were in those families. And one particularly poignant comment of Mason's was, "A lovely childhood memory brought by the most ingenious candy made in my hometown." And that refers to the candy that this bunny wrapper was around.
So we wanted to map the unmapped and the unmappable, to see new things and to see old things in new ways. So one of the things, and to get the kids to tell their own stories. So one of the things we did is we had them keep a mapping journal. And every day they would map something new. They would do maps of their morning. So this is Melanie's morning. They did maps of 8:13 a.m. and that time I was 2. And one girl did a poop map of all the bathrooms on campus where she felt comfortable pooping, which was very, very much her own story that she shared with us. And now I have to share with you. So we also had them map Hank Williams songs because we found, to our dismay and horror, that they had never heard of Hank Williams. So we each had them pick a Hank Williams song and map it, and these are a couple very different examples. The work that these kids did was brilliant and beautiful and surprising and often very moving. They took our ideas to places that we would never have imagined they go. And every day was a feast for our brains and our hearts. So none of these maps that we're showing you are any weirder or more abstract than this map of the US that hangs in most classrooms. All of these maps are representing somebody's version of reality. Because humans, unlike squirrels, live almost completely in stories. And it's all about the stories you tell, how you tell them, and who you're telling them to.
So you might wonder how you can bring this into your classroom. We think one of the strengths in the curriculum that we're developing and have developed is its flexibility. It's really great for multimodal learning. There are 3 students all working on the same project. This is Eduardo making a sound map. Devin is creating a photo-based map of photographs he took himself. Jessica is creating a 3-dimensional wire map. There's also a map for just about everything, and I would bet there is a map for everything based on some of the maps I've seen. This is one of my favorites. It's not by our students, unfortunately. It's by 2 designers, I think out of the UK, and they are looking at population density in cities. So the outline is the outline of the city, and this is the most dense area, the less dense areas. So there are maps for some very serious things. There are maps for migrations of people and the associated deaths along the way. There are maps for silly things like where the goats in the United States live and what state has the most goats, which I guess isn't silly if you're a goat or a goat farmer. I don't want to slam the goats. One map that really had a high impact on me was a video time-based map that it shows Hitler's army's movements throughout Europe in World War II and how powerful they were and how incredibly fast they were. And it hit me in a way that all of the things I had read about World War II never sort of prepared me for the visceral reaction I had to that map.
So mapping meaning was about many things. One of the most important was to help kids start making connections between ideas and events and people and elections, and start asking questions. So we saw kids change during this course, from assuming that maps are just inert representations of factual information to understanding that they tell stories about all kinds of things like power and race and class and gender and gentrification and economic justice and a million other things. And what we hope for most from this class was that our kids that we would help them become independent thinkers who would grow up to become active, intelligent citizens in a democracy, and that they would be able to ask their own questions about the tsunami of information and images that we all drown under every single day. And that they would be able to go out, especially in this time of too many words, too little democracy, too little truth, and that they would be able to go out and change some of these stories. So we'll end with a quote from one of our students who said, Jing Shin, who said that maps, in a way, negotiate between subjective human thoughts and the objective world. This class twisted my mind. And those kids twisted our minds, too. Thank you.
To do a quick plug for a workshop we're doing at Boston Public Library in 2 weeks. That's a teacher's workshop about mapping meaning, and we'd love to talk with you about maps. So do you want to pass this?